Um, Hello, everyone. So we are going to record this as a podcast episode, just because I think that that'll be the most accessible way to get this information out there. There's also a YouTube video link too. If you are more of a visual person, there's a PowerPoint going along with this, but welcome back to the Yes Means Yes podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the history of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. As usual, my name is Faith Naumcheff. I am the ARP Counseling and Outreach Coordinator. For my visual people, there is a picture of me and my dog at the most recent SAAM event that RCEA did. So thank you guys so much for joining us, listening into this presentation, and we will go ahead and get started. I also have my email here if you do have questions or anything that comes up. And yeah, I'm with Rape Counselors of East Alabama, as always, and we are just gonna jump in. So this year is the 23rd anniversary of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Every April is recognized as SAM, or Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So if I say SAM throughout this, that's what I'm referencing. And really the big purpose of SAM is we want to provide awareness, education, prevention, outreach, make our communities aware, engage them, and talk to them about sexual violence, right? And how there are many, many forms of it, right? So just a lot of awareness, a lot of education. So like I said, this is our 23rd year. So this is many years for me personally. This is let's see, my first was 2019. So 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. So this is my sixth SAM myself, but I know that there are a lot of people who have been in the field since way before SAM even existed. So that's pretty cool to see the individuals that I work with who've been here for a long time. And then it's also, I think, a good recognition moment where, this has not been around that long. SAM hasn't. It was just 2001 when it got recognized. So I think that's important to acknowledge. So let's take it all the way back. We're going to do a little bit of a history on SAM. In 1866, something happened called the Memphis Riots, or some refer to it as the Memphis Massacre. And this is an event that happened following the Civil War. There were white Memphis police officers and Black Union soldiers. They were involved in a shooting altercation. This led to the police, along with other white residents, then rampaging through Black neighborhoods and assaulting, murdering, and raping Black soldiers and civilians. So the significance of this is that 5 Black women who survived these riots, who survived this massacre, actually testified during a congressional investigation about what happened to them. And these were the first testimonies of sexual violence that are a part of a US trial. So this was kind of the beginning of it being acknowledged legally. So this is a very important first thing to talk about. So like I said, before 2001, this is a little bit further back, but we're gonna keep talking through the history and timeline of it. But this is a very important, crucial first piece of that. So then we're going to take a little bit of a skip ahead, and we are going to look at the 1940s through 50s. And we're going to go back and talk about a couple of key women in between now and then. But in the 40s and 50s, this was when social equality and change movements were on the forefront. At this time, we saw a lot of the main advocacy forces were Black women and women of color for women's rights, because the question of social rights and what that looked like had come to the forefront. I think it's also important to mention, and we'll talk a little bit more about her in a minute, with Rosa Parks. She specifically worked at the intersection of race and gender. So she was working of, okay, these are the parts of oppression that come with being Black. These are the parts of oppression that come with being a woman. Now, what if you're Black and a woman? What does that look like? How does that, multiply the oppression you face, the discrimination you face? So This concept now actually is known as intersectionality. The term has been coined since, and we talk about this now in so many different ways. Any sort of marginalized group that you are a member of, it kind of coincides with other identities and marginalized groups you have. So it's a very, very important concept now in the helping professional and the social work field, and something that Ms. Park started and is very, very relevant to today. So, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the significant women of the early movement. These were all Black women. They were big change makers and all were a part of the making of SAAM, making of sexual violence prevention education awareness what it is today, right? So we're going to start out and talk a little bit about Miss Ida B. Wells. So she was someone who really in the mid 18, so about 1860s to 1930s, she played a really big part in fighting against racism, sexism, and gender-based violence. Um, she was significant in the South because she led some anti-rape movements and was really big on focusing on destroying the stereotypes and hypersexualization of Black women. And also, on the other side, kind of destroying the idea that Black men were the perpetrators of sexual violence and bringing to light, that anyone can be a perpetrator, right? It is not just one set group. Um, so her main goal was trying to change cultural norms and wanted to fight those to decrease violence in communities. And it sounds like too, race was a really big part of that by her, um, helping with the discussion of why are Black women hypersexualized and why are Black men viewed as perpetrators of this. So she played a really big part in that. Another important character, or I'm sorry, not character, another important woman during this time was Miss Recy Taylor. This actually was something that happened in Alabama. So Recy Taylor was part of, hold on. Okay, I'm going to start over because I don't like that. So in 19, okay, we're going to start over. So Miss Recy Taylor was another really, really important woman in this movement. In 1944 in Alabama, she was leaving church with some friends. She had 7 white men kidnap her and they terrorized them, and 6 of these men raped her. So no one was taking it seriously. She was not being believed. No one was really doing anything about it. So she reached out to the NAACP and they sent out someone they deemed to be one of their best investigators, which happened to be Rosa Parks. And she kind of explored and looked at what happened. This investigation led to something called the Committee for Equal Justice, and that started that creation of that. So it's a very important thing to look at, especially with it being so close to where we are, since this crisis center and many of our advocates work out of Alabama, right? Being aware of the history that led us here with Recy Taylor fighting for her right to safety, fighting for her right to be believed. And then, like we talked about, Rosa Parks was huge in the equality movements overall, but definitely brought to light a lot of the intersectionality that existed and was a big voice for Black women. So these are all really important individuals who probably are not credited enough with their contributions to sexual violence awareness. So I thought that it would be a good point to talk about them and look at the contributions that they did make, because it really is believed that Black women and women of color were huge, huge change makers and started the conversation about, sexual violence. So we're going to move forward a little bit more when we're talking about the 1970s. This is where we saw a lot of firsts happening in the United States. So in 1971, we had the first rape crisis center open. This was the Bay Area Women Against Rape, and it was open in San Francisco. And over the next 5 or so years, you saw 400 more open across the US. So this was a very big decade for movements in sexual assault awareness. It's also important to note that in 1975, the first state coalition was formed in Pennsylvania. So the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape formed in 75. And that's huge. There's still state coalitions today. They kind of like funnel down funding. They provide all kinds of resources and access to the local rape crisis centers. They're an invaluable resource and part of the sexual violence prevention and awareness efforts. The first Take Back the Night was also held in San Francisco in 1978, and we'll talk a little bit more about Take Back the Night in a little bit, but this is one of the larger, more known events that we see for SAAM. For my podcast listeners, you're not gonna be able to see this, but my YouTube people, I thought this was a really cool picture. It's a women's equal rights parade in 1977, and this photo was from the Library of Congress, and it says, big banner and a bunch of women. You can see the Capitol in the background. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So I thought that was a really cool image to include. Let's move forward to 1990s, where we had the introduction of the VAWA Act. This is the Violence Against Women Act, and it was actually passed in 94 by President Bill Clinton while he was in office at the time. This act basically approved legal funding for options for individuals to take their cases forward criminally. So this is funding for, court type things, advocates to assist with this kind of stuff. It really just opened up the doors for legal action to be taken and not be at the cost of survivors, and allow, rape crisis centers to be able to do that. And this is an act that still provides grant funding to rape crisis centers to this day. It is a grant that we receive, and I'm sure a lot of other rape crisis centers receive. If we move to the 2000s, this is where we finally get to where SAAM is identified, addressed, and acknowledged. So National Sexual Violence Resource Center nonprofit was founded in 2000. This is a huge nonprofit that provides so many resources, so many funding and grant opportunities, and just is kind of an overarching foundation, right, for sexual violence. There's a lot of information. They do all kinds of studies and statistics. It's a great national resource. And they, in 2001, were the ones who deemed April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So they declared it. That was our first year that we had SAAM. Now, I think it's also interesting to note that the only president who has ever acknowledged SAAM was President Barack Obama in 2009, and he's the only president since who has. So the only one out of, the past 23 years who has ever recognized April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Obama also started some college campus initiatives to end sexual violence too, which is pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about SAAM today. What does that look like? What is it? Differences from before, what is modern SAAM? So I think that one of the big important distinctions of SAAM now is that there is a emphasis on prevention efforts. So some organizations will actually refer to it as SAAPM, so Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. That is a bigger thing that's been more recent in the past couple of years. So highlighting both the awareness and prevention aspects of sexual violence. Some of the big ones, like we talked about, was the Take Back the Night. This is basically a vigil honoring survivors. It's a night where rape crisis centers will gather groups. They will have sometimes speakers, do the candles, just kind of have that solidarity moment for those survivors. Another big event and day recognized in April is something called Denim Day. So Denim Day is the last Wednesday of April. This is actually not just a national thing, but it is a worldwide thing. In Italy, the Supreme Court overturned a rape conviction because they said that the victim, her genes were so tight that there's no way she could have been raped because she would have had to have assisted in removing the genes for the perpetrator to get them off. So this was kind of like a day in response to that, in response to kind of that victim blaming mentality. So this is a day where individuals are encouraged to wear jeans and say, what I wear does not make me ask to be raped or make me asked to have sexual violence perpetrated against me. It does not make me, more likely to be a victim. So I think that that day has become a really big thing, and especially nonprofits too, because a lot of them have been able to turn it into like a fundraiser where they'll, be able to reach out to local organizations that maybe they don't get to wear jeans and, say if you pay $1 or $2, their workplace will allow them to wear jeans and that money can go back into the nonprofit to keep doing their work. So Denim Day has definitely been a really cool thing to see. And I think that it's been a really, really good movement and sent such a great message. So those are just two of many, many events. For our organization specifically, each year we do an annual SAAM t-shirt fundraiser. We come up with a t-shirt design. It always has something to do with awareness on it. Some of the past they've said like, I believe survivors on it, or looking at, awareness ribbons, butterflies, things like that. So we do that every year. This was our 5th year doing that of the t-shirts, and it's a fun way to get your community involved. And, sometimes even just wearing a t-shirt might cause someone enough to be like, is this a safe person I can, talk to? So that's something that we do that I think is cool. We also do, lot of social media outreach and stuff. So that is a big part of our SAAM efforts, podcasts, lunch and learns, YouTube videos, getting volunteers and interns involved. That's all a really big thing with us. And I think that the role of social media in Sexual Assault Awareness Month has been awesome, right? Because we can all share resources with each other. I can, take something that the National Sexual Violence Resource Center has on their Instagram, I can share it immediately. Or I can get ideas based on other people's SAM events. So it's been really, really cool to see. And it's also been super fun to reach more people on our end, right? So we can share what we're doing, have other people see it, have other people acknowledge it, and just kind of, get it out there and share what we are doing with our community too. One of the big things that we did this year, we did a candlelight vigil, very similar to Take Back the Night. But as part of this, one of the interns actually created a virtual survivor art gallery. And this was something where survivors submitted their stories, and she kind of basically made them into like a PowerPoint art gallery. And like as if you were to go into like, an art gallery and look at art, they were kind of like posed in frames. And she then had individuals sign up to respond to each story with affirmation, a letter of support. So that was really, really cool to see. And that was something that at our candlelight vigil, we were able to print out and display during the vigil for anyone who came in person. So that was a pretty neat activity that we had never done before. It was awesome. Another one that we have done in the past is a What Were You Wearing exhibit. This is an exhibit where survivors share the clothing pieces that they were wearing during their assault. And this is another form of saying like, doesn't matter what I was wearing, that is not what caused the rape. Because you can see, everything from children's nightgowns to, a towel, to a work uniform, So those are very, very moving pieces. So yeah, I think that modern SAM There are, so many things. There's a walk a mile in her shoes, runs and walks, where, men or male identifying people will wear heels and do a walk. There are just so many events, and everyone is so, so creative, and it's awesome to see all that. And definitely social media makes it easier to, keep up with what everyone else is doing. So this is kind of where SAAM is at today. It's a really, really big month for rape crisis centers, and it is something that we luckily have been able to partner a lot with the local universities here and with our communities, law enforcement, getting them teal ribbons for their cars. That's another big thing we do. And then getting the mayors in our counties to do proclamations of it being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So getting the community involved is a big, big part of SAM for us. And we, really appreciate all of our community members' involvement when we do that. So that is a very, brief history on SAM. I'm sure that I could probably go in even more and look at even more, individuals. This is definitely not a comprehensive list of everyone who had an impact on SAM, because that list just would go on forever and is still going on, right? Everyone involved in the fight today is a part of the history of SAM. Everyone who has ever been part of the SAM event is part of the history of SAM. There are so many people out there who I'm sure played some part in making Sexual Assault Awareness Month what it is today. So at the end of this month, with it being the last day of April, I just want to say thank you to all of the people who fight for survivors, all of the people who've been there for survivors, all the people who've supported them. Um, and this month is all about survivors, but I think it's important to take a moment and thank our advocates too, because this is not easy work. It is, some days can be really, really rough. And I think that it's important that we acknowledge the great strength and abilities that our advocates do have. So thank you to our advocates, legal advocates, victim advocates, executive director, coalition members, prevention educators, all of those people. You all have a part in playing um, and ending sexual violence. And a joke that we make in the sexual violence community is that we are one of the only fields that is working to have our job eliminated. And that's the truth, right? Our goal is to end sexual violence. So I thank everyone who is listening, who has looked at this, video. I definitely, encourage you, if you do have any interest in, maybe participating in a SAM or participating, all year round. SAM is a big month, but that's not to say that we don't do all kinds of awareness and prevention things throughout the year, right? So if you are interested, get involved in a local center. And if you have any questions about what that looks like or what your local center may even be, email me. I'd be glad to help you out and figure out, who's in your area and what ways you could potentially be helping. But thank you again for listening, checking this out. SAM is one of my most favorite months because I think it's a really, really great way to engage the community. And I'm, um, always looking forward to April and the next April and seeing what we can do better and how we can better serve our community and better serve our survivors. So thank you for listening for this episode of the Yes Means Yes podcast / video. And I will see y'all next time. Thank you.